I am Gillian Anderson, and this is the Wired Autocomplete interview. That's pretty cool. What age was Gillian Anderson in the X-Files? Well, when I was first cast, I was 24 years old. I lied. I told them I was 27 because I didn't think they would hire me if I was 24. Not least because the character that I played, Dana Scully, was already a doctor and an FBI agent. Yeah, you can't be those things when you're 24. What is Gillian Anderson working on now? I'm doing a Netflix Western called Abandons, written by Kurt Sutter. I'm gonna be riding a horse and shooting a pistol, and that's all that matters. What does my tattoo say? Which one? This is a tattoo which is in Sanskrit, and it's one of the 8 limbs of yoga, which is about right mind and right action. What did Gillian Anderson wear to the Golden Globes? I wore a dress covered in vaginas. Gabriella Hearst, who is a designer and a friend of mine, made the dress, and it was handcrafted by many very talented women. And I think each panel had, I'm forgetting now. There were a lot of vaginas. That's basically all I have to say. A lot of vaginas. Gillian Anderson, books. I have a book coming out in September called Want that Bloomsbury is putting out, and it is a collection of women's sexual fantasies. There was a book in the 70s called My Secret Garden by Nancy Friday, and she put a call out to women asking them to submit their fantasies anonymously. I did the same thing last year. And a lot of women wrote in, about 800 completed letters, and we have chosen 174 of them for the book. Gillian Anderson characters. Voice of God. What does this mean?
What's one character that you had wrestled with the most?
Blanche Dubois from Streetcar Named Desire in London and New York, and she goes mad by the end of the play. And going mad 8 times a week for 2-3 months at a time can take it out of a girl, but I loved it. She still lives inside me somewhere. Gillian Anderson. Princess Mononoke is an animation film by Miyazaki, who's a Japanese animator, and he is a legend. And I have always been a fan of his films, and particularly my daughter, who's 29, grew up on his films. And at one point they asked me if I would play Moro, a goddess who is in the shape of a wolf. And so I do the voiceover for the English version of Princess Mononoke. Fun fact, the original voice was quite deep. And so while I was doing it, I was trying to get my voice to be that deep for the she-wolf, and never quite got there. Gillian Anderson knows how to make a fashion statement. I think what's being referred to is the thong for the Vanity Fair party, maybe. There was a jersey dress that I was going to wear. It was very low cut in the back, and so I couldn't wear underwear with it. But then my pubic hair stuck out in the front. At that time, didn't really want to, shave it all off. And so I put on my G-string and went to the Vanity Fair party with the low-cut dress with the G-string showing, and it got some attention. But, girls gotta do what a girl's gotta do. Gillian Anderson, Scoop. It's a Netflix film where I play Emily Maitlis, who interviewed Prince Andrew in the infamous Emily Maitlis and Prince Andrew interview. I said yes to this role because I like a challenge, and she's a pretty cool character, and the script was really, 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 really good. Gillian Anderson, OBE. I have one of these. Order of the British Empire. When you're not a British citizen, you get an honorary one. Therefore, the Queen or one of the other royals doesn't actually present it to you like they do if you're actually British. It's a medal and a title, and it's an honor, is what it is. Where does Gillian Anderson live? I live in London, England. I have lived there for 22 years. I grew up there. I was not born there, I was born in Chicago. London has a lot of green spaces. You wouldn't guess that from such a massive metropolitan city, but it is incredibly green. There are a lot of garden squares and a lot of trees and very cool architecture. And I love it. It's my favorite city. Gillian Anderson's sex education style. So in sex education, I played a character called Jean Milburn, who was a sex therapist, and she had a very cool sense of style. And one of those things that she wore on a regular basis were jumpsuits. She can rock a jumpsuit. I can't rock a jumpsuit, but Jean Milburn can rock a jumpsuit. Who is Gillian Anderson in The Crown? Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who was a prime minister for about 10 years in the United Kingdom. Margaret Thatcher is actually quite fascinating. She comes from a little town up north in the UK called Grantham, and her dad was an alderman, and they had a shop, and they lived above the shop. And they were very religious, they were Methodists, and she could have probably run the country when she was about 7 years old, I think, based on the way her brain worked, how her thinking was already, and having already observed and experienced her father making speeches as an alderman. All of those facts of her childhood added entirely to the person that she then became. Who is Gillian Anderson in American Gods? Well, I'm a few people. The goddess Medea, and I show up as Marilyn Monroe and David Bowie and Lucille Ball and one other. Judy Garland, that's right. I show up as those four people. That was a lot of fun. Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny. I don't know, who's David Duchovny? Oh, yeah. No, I'm joking. Of course I know who David is. David Duchovny played Fox Mulder. I played Dana Scully, a series called The XFiles for about 6,000 years. One of the coolest guys on television for a long time. People have always been interested in David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson getting together personally, privately, intimately, as they were interested in Mulder and Scully getting together intimately, and not going to happen. When did Gillian Anderson leave the X-Files? I think it was in 2002. And why do I remember that date? Because, as I said, I've been doing it for 6,000 years. Is Gillian Anderson a redhead? I am not a redhead. Scully was a redhead. Does Gillian Anderson have children? I do. I have 3 children, 15, 17, and 29, and they are the loves of my life. Gillian Anderson Awards. I guess recently winning for Thatcher in The Crown. I think many years ago I won awards for the X-Files, and I think I was so young and overwhelmed. And recently when I won for The Crown, after being in the industry and, you know, for so many decades in between, it made it that much more of an honor and meaningful. And so I was incredibly grateful and happy, and I smiled, and God was good, and life was good. Thank you very much for having me. That's me, over and out.